everybody, and I want to welcome you to Lory Landing, which is an exhibit that many of you are probably familiar with as guests. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nikki, and I am a senior aviculturist at the San Antonio Zoo, which means I work in the bird department, and we are in here with a bunch of beautiful birds. What we have featured today is Lorikeets from Lory Landing, and these guys are native to Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, all the way up through Indonesia. And they are very pretty. They have very fun colors, as you can see here, and they are a member of the parrot family. These guys specialize in eating different types of fruits, and they also, which is the really cool fact about them, is they drink nectar out of flowers, or, you know, lick my head. They're very loud as well. They will pollinate flowers just like bees and butterflies do, and they are really important to their ecosystem because of those things. In a little bit, I'm going to show you how they eat nectar out of a cup, which is something that a guest can do when we're open fully to the public. And they will put their tongue in the cup of nectar and lap it out just like a dog or a cat would drink out of a bowl. And when they do that to a flower, they get pollen on their head, and then they move to the next flower, therefore pollinating them and make a whole new generation of fruits for everybody to enjoy. In this exhibit, we have 3 different species of lorikeets. They're commonly referred to as rainbow lorikeets, but the 3 specific species that we have in here are going to be Forsten's lorikeets, which are these 2 that we're looking at right here, or 3 actually, there's one messed up in the bottom, being goofy parrots as they like to be. And they have a very dark head and dark chest with that bright, vibrant red neck. And this is the smallest species of lorikeet that we have at the zoo. They come much smaller than this, but this is the one that we have in our exhibit. Up here, we have some what are called green-naped lorikeets. And as you can see, they have a barring on their chest, which is slightly different from the lorikeets that we were just looking at, and they're also a little bit larger. And once again, those are called green-naped lorikeets. The other species that we have in here is Swainson's lorikeets, and they look a little bit more like these Forstens, but with less purple on their belly. And we have them in here somewhere, playing with the toy, I am sure. In total, there are 56 species of lorikeets throughout the world, with many subspecies. There are a few that are endangered, mainly due to deforestation or collection for the parrot trade. And so it's really important that when you look into possibly getting a bird like this for at home, that you look for where it was sourced from and that it came from a reputable breeder and not somebody who took them out of the wild and shipped them across the seas. These guys have a ton of personality. As you can see, they're very vocal as well. Parrots in general are very loud because they live as a flock, and that is how they talk to one another. They communicate across forests and through dense vegetation and trees. And so it's really important that they be able to stay in touch with one another as they're flying around, going from tree to tree to look for fruit.
Decorations that you have all throughout this habitat?
Well, since we missed Fiesta San Antonio and we have to wait till October, or November actually, we have decided to give them a little party in here, just so you guys can see them enjoying their fun toys with fun Fiesta colored decorations and Easter colored decorations. So these are things that they will chew on and shred and pick through. These guys are cavity nesters, and so they do a lot of biting and digging and making holes in things and shredding things. So that's very much in their nature. And so these types of toys will help encourage those natural behaviors that they have, the ripping and the tearing and the biting and the hole making. Oh, here we have, so this is a green nape on the right-hand side, and then a Swainson's Lory on the left-hand side. And you can see a little bit how their breast feathers are different colors from one another. One has that deep barring, and the other one does not. And that is the way that we tell these guys apart. There's a lot of love happening in Lory Landing this time of year.
Can explain what they're doing?
This is preening or mutual grooming. This is a way for them to strengthen their pair bonds. Birds cannot groom the top of their heads very well, obviously, because they can't reach there. And so as a way for them to get to know one another and to bond with one another, they will groom each other's heads. And we have a couple of more bald individuals in here than others, and that is because they overgroom as well. They get a little too excited about it. Hi, baby. And they are definitely goofballs. You want to come say hi, or are you going to bite? Oh, I know what you want to do. You want to get in there? Goofies. And they are definitely clowns. Parrots in general are kind of clown species. They enjoy being weird and doing fun things that people find very funny. Hi, you going to come visit too? I get to be a tree. A lot of my day spent in here without guests because these guys miss our guests just as much as the keepers and the other animals do here at the zoo. These guys really miss interacting with you guys as you come through with your nectar and feeding them and getting to climb all over you like a jungle gym. These guys have missed that, and so as keepers, we come in here every day and devote a little bit of time to interact with them and make sure that they are socially stimulated the way that they normally would be. Hi. Hello. Do you guys want some nectar? Maybe? Okay, let's go get some nectar and see if we can see these fancy tongues that we have. Hi. Can we go there? You see that quick tongue work? And I don't know if you'll be able to tell, but the end of their tongue is covered with tiny little brush-like protrusions, which allow them to drink the nectar more efficiently. We're going to have a little train, and they're all going to trade off because they're very excited, but they don't get nectar like this right now. We usually just put it out in pans. Oh! Now we're going to tussle. Oh my goodness. There's a bird on the phone for you at home. So anybody that is joining us right now, we are inside Lory Landing, which many of you as guests know and have been able to experience, but have probably been missing it just like our birds have been. Okay. Come on, guys. I've created monsters. Go on. Y'all go over there. I don't need to be a tree. And as you can see, the birds are very excited that we're in there hanging out with them. They much enjoy the social interaction from people as well as other birds. Yes, a lot of get away with my foot. That is how we handle it.
How many birds do you have in here?
I have another cup just for this problem. Right now, there are 23 lorikeets in this exhibit. And another fun fact, lorikeets range in size from very tiny, probably about half the size of these lories that we see here, and they'll go all the way into probably 3 times the size of the lorikeets that we have here. So there's a huge range in the wild of how big or small these guys are. We have one very solid representation of this type of lorikeet, but they come in solid red, solid green, black and orange, scaly breasted. There are so many different wonderful types. Like I said, there's 56 different species with many other subspecies. And so there's a lot of variety in these guys. And the coloration, as you see, a lot of people say, well, how do they camouflage? They're so colorful. Their native environment is also very colorful. Their backs match the colors of the trees, so if something is trying to predate them from above, they blend in with the canopy and the foliage. And then below, they're going to blend in with all the fruit and the flowers that they're eating off of as you see them from the ground up. They are always a joy to look at and interact with because they are so happy most of the time. And they are very playful, as I was saying earlier. They are very clown-like. So once again here, these guys are all Forstens lorikeets. This here is a Swainson's lorikeet running away from me as I pointed him. And then this here is a green-naped lorikeet with the green barring on his chest. And you'll see some flirting going on here, this bending over and vocalization. They'll do a little wing flutter. It is the spring. So these guys, just like most other animals right now, they're doing all of their best to attract a boyfriend or a girlfriend. This hopping around that we have here. There's lots of flirting going on the ground.
Kayla would like to know if you have a favorite personality.
So one of my favorites here is Scooby, actually. He's bouncing around on the ground. And he has, if you can see real closely, he only has 1 foot. And so he is definitely somebody that attracts a lot of attention here on exhibit because everybody is concerned about the fact that he only has 1 foot. He lost it in an accident several years ago, but thrives on exhibit and interacting with people. We also have a couple other birds in exhibit that are a little bit more full of personality than others. Right here we have a bird called Baldy. And as you can see, he is called Baldy for a very apt reason. He's a little lacking of the head feathers because he had a girlfriend or a boyfriend, I'm not sure if he's a boy or girl, that loved to preen him a little too much. And so he's just not going to ever grow those feathers back on the back of his head. And he's fine. He has great self-confidence and doesn't mind the fact that he's a little short on the head feathers.
Bald is beautiful.
Yes, bald is beautiful. And we have a couple of birds that'll say their name, hi birdie, how are you doing, what are you doing? And so they can mimic to a certain extent like some of the larger parrots as well. It's not perfect and they don't always know what they're saying, but they do gibber at you quite a bit.
How long do they live?
In captivity, they can live anywhere from 15 to 30 years. In the wild, it's probably closer to 10 years. Most of these birds in this exhibit range anywhere from a year old, from one that we bred last year, all the way up to about 15 or 20 years old here on exhibit.
Quinn is asking if you can explain how the keeper staff tell them apart.
Thanks, Quentin. The Lory interpreters, I'm going to shout out to them. They are our full-time staff that work here in Lory Landing, and they would be able to go to every single bird and tell each one of them apart from one another. I probably have a handle on a solid 5 birds in here about who they are and what their names are. So it takes a lot of practice in learning personalities. Some of it is about who hangs out with whom, because they definitely form little pods of birds that like to hang out with one another. And so if you can identify those guys, then you'll figure out who hangs out together. As a technical way as to who they are, each one of these birds has a little tiny silver band around their ankle. And what that is like a name tag for us. That little silver band, oh, look at this mutual feeding we have going on. That's, very love. That's a lot of love they have going on right there. Each little silver band that they have around their ankle has a number on it, and that number corresponds to this individual bird. And so we can take that number back to our records and be able to figure out when that bird was hatched, if he was hatched here, who his or her parents were, along with any siblings that they might have, or any medical problems that they have that are ongoing or have had in the past. We have great record keeping here at the zoo. Both electronic and manual, and it really plays a great role in the care that we can give to these animals that are here at the zoo. You gonna come over? Is that what you want?
So Judy is saying Brooke is crying because she misses these birds so much. So
Oh,
shout out to Brooke.
Oh, Brooke, and they miss you guys so much. Brooke and Megan and Gabby. and Elise and Yesenia. They are all of our full-time Lory or part-time Lory interpreters, but they only work here in Lory Landing, and they have been furloughed while we have been closed and are duly missing their little feathered babies. And we have been taking good care of them while they're not here, but I'm sure they would like their real mom back. Moms, multiple.
Cassandra would like to know if there's a way to tell the genders apart, if males and females look different.
They do not. These guys, we have to have feather sex, which is pretty typical for most parrot species. They are not sexually dimorphic. Dimorphic implies that they look differently from one another. Like a mallard duck, the male is very fancy looking, and the females are kind of brown. In parrot species, pretty much across the board, the males and the females look almost identical to one another. In these lorikeets, are very tiny. We take a few feathers that they have lost, and we send them off to a lab, and they will do DNA sexing on them for us. And when we get those results back, we know, okay, you're a boy. And sometimes it works well, and sometimes it doesn't. I will tell you of another bird that we have, and his name is Janet. He was named before we knew if it was a boy or a girl. So now it's the boy named Janet. And so that does happen on occasion, and we do our best to kind of make alterations to make their names fit their genders a little bit better, but it doesn't always work out, and sometimes they know their names first.
Other than nectar, what do they eat?
These guys spend 70% of their day eating fruits and drinking out of pollen out of flowers, nectar out of flowers. So they spend a ton of their day just foraging around and eating fruit off of trees. Here at the zoo, we feed them a chopped fruit diet that has included papaya, blueberries, apples, grapes, pears, carrots, peas, corn. They do love their corn and carrots, so a few veggies make it in their diet as well. Bananas are a big hit as well. Anything fruit related, they are all over it. They are not super picky. So they love their fruit, a few vegetables. We'll put whole fruit items around their exhibit as well and stick them on the tree limbs so they get the experience of going around and foraging for fruit. And then they also get a fortified pelleted diet that we add to their fruit mixture that just ensures that they get all of the vitamins and minerals that they might be lacking in the fruit that we're giving them. And then we do feed them out the nectar that I was feeding them earlier, or when you come in the zoo and you purchase food to feed them, we do feed them out nectar every day as well.
Since we were just getting a really good view of it, can you talk about their tongues again?
Absolutely. So we were talking earlier about when they drink nectar, they have what are called feathers or little extensions on the end of their tongue. And when they stick it out, it almost like has like a cat would have little extensions on it. These guys have even more so. And what they do is they'll use that to lap up the nectar in a flower. And when they do that, they collect pollen on their feathers. And then they will move to another plant and drink nectar out of that flower and pollinate it the same way that a bee would do, or a butterfly, or a hummingbird. These guys act the same. Oh, look at that tongue action. These guys do the same thing in their native environment. Bristly tongues, that's what they call them.
Where would this species be found out in the wild?
In the wild, these guys are native to Australia, mostly on the northern coasts, and then they also extend up through New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and the islands of Indonesia. There are some species that only exist on one island, and those are going to be the ones that are more endangered than, say, these guys in here that are not threatened. Those ones that are only present on one island are going to be more at risk to extinction, typically because of deforestation due to human activity, or people going into nest cavities and stealing babies for the pet trade. So those are things that these guys face as challenges in the wild. But luckily, these species that we have represented here are doing very well and don't have any of those problems as of right now.
Somebody asked earlier when they were all landing on you if their feet are sharp and if they hurt when they land on you.
They do not. These guys, they grip with their feet, but they do not have sharp talons. And so mainly when they're putting their feet on you, they're just kind of testing, to make sure that you're going to be sturdy enough for them to stand on. Excuse me. These guys have parrot feet, which are zygodactyl, which means they have 2 toes pointing forward and 2 toes pointing backwards. Frog in my throat. When you have toes that are like that, it allows them to do a lot of gymnastics while they're looking for their food. They can hang upside down, crawl on things, crawl up and down branches, grab onto fruit or flowers really easy, and it allows them to be very dexterous with their little feetsies. As you can see, they also like to push each other around with them as well. Most bird feet have 3 toes facing forward and 1 toe facing backwards, or they're missing that back toe altogether. And that is a more traditional toe arrangement like you would see on chickens or turkeys, something that you're more familiar with. So parrot feet are really fun because they have that different orientation, so it allows them to be more flexible as they're perching and flying around and grabbing onto things. Where'd they all go? See, we have one over here being a bat. You're not a bat.
Cheryl's asking if you know specific numbers of how many are out in the wild.
I do not know specific numbers. These guys are not threatened, and they typically fly around in flocks of anywhere from 25 to 100 individuals. And so they have quite a large number. These specific species have quite a large number in the wild because they do live together in big social groups. I imagine some of the ones that are more threatened, you're going to be in the thousands of individuals left in the wild. None of these are extremely endangered or on the way out, but it is something that we need to be concerned with, because even though these guys are okay, there's other things that live in the trees that they live in. And so if you can protect the trees that these guys live in, you protect all the other species that live in the trees with them. Lots of preening going on. We've had a lot of fun, and so now it's time to groom our feathers. So 70% of these guys' day is typically done foraging for food, and the other 30% is going to be spent bonding with the flock, doing mutual preening exercises and grooming their feathers. These guys have to groom their feathers pretty regularly. If the bird's feathers are in bad condition, it prevents them from being able to fly very well, which can affect their ability to keep up with the flock. So it's really important that these guys spend some time grooming, and they typically don't slack on that for sure. Over grooming even.
Sandra would like to know what you guys do to clean their exhibit.
To clean their exhibit, somebody was asking what we do to clean their exhibit. These guys, we will hose their exhibit down with water every day just to get all the superficial mess off of it. And then several times a week we will go in with different types of disinfectant and disinfect them as well. So bleach, and Oxivir and Tektrol are some of the technical chemicals that we use. But those things we put down, we rotate and put down at least twice a week just to make sure that these guys stay as healthy as they can.
Jordan is asking if we educate people on the differences in the species and subspecies.
We had a question on if we educate the public on differentiating the species and the subspecies. And while they're in the exhibit, the interpreters are happy to explain the differences between the three that we have here, just because it's easier with visuals to be able to say, like, this one is a Forstens lorikeet. Hi. And we'll be able to tell them how that is different from the Swainsons and the green napes that we have on exhibit. It's a little harder to educate about the other ones when we don't have visual representation of them here. But if you catch the right person, we're happy to tell you about the lories that we've had in the past, because we've had many other species in Lory Landing in the past. We just don't have them in here right now.
And this is an experience you said that when the zoo is open, our guests can participate in, right?
Correct. So Lory Landing is open to the public. It's one of the feeding experiences that you can add to your visit. For $2, you're allowed to purchase Lory nectar at one of our stands right here in front of the exhibit. And when you walk in, you'll have your cup of nectar, and they will come over, happily fly over to you, and enjoy the treat that you have bought them. They'll drink all that nectar out of the cup that you were provided with and land on you, and so you'll be able to watch them drink it and have the experience of holding a bird in your hand as well at the same time. Along with the Lory Landing experience, we also have an experience where you're able to feed the giraffes for lettuce leaves, and what other experiences do we have? Oh, we have VIP tours available for, VIP tours available for hippos and rhinos to do behind the scenes for those guys. And then we also have a flamingo feeding experience. So you get to feed all the birds while you're here, and offer them a cup of ground up flamingo food, and you'll be able to come over and see them filter feed. So we have 2 bird experiences available to the public when we're open fully, that you can add to your normal visit. This is definitely one of our most popular exhibits, though. We have quite a number of people that filter through here. It is something that a lot of guests really enjoy, having that hands-on interaction with them. Many people do not have exposure to parrots outside of what they see on television. And so to be able to get technically hands-on with these guys is really exciting for our public to be able to participate in.
So I've got 2 different questions for you. You've kind of already touched on one, but Yesenia would like to know if you can talk about the 3 different types of lorikeets that are in here and how you can tell the difference.
Okay, so we had a question about the 3 different types of lorikeets that we have on exhibit. So here we have 2 examples. The one that is facing towards you is this one here is a Forstens lorikeet, and he's putting on his very nice dance for this other lorikeet right here. And the other lorikeet that he is dancing for, we're not shy, is a green nape lorikeet, and you can tell that by those green bars that go across his chest, or her chest. And so that is a green nape and a Forstens. And then we also have Swainson's lorikeets in here. I gotta find one. And they are, here we go, right here. And so this is essentially the green nape lorikeet, but is missing those green bars that go across the chest. This one right here, I believe, is one as well. So we have 3 different types, and kind of commonly they're known as rainbow lorikeets. That's kind of a casual name for them. But the 3 species that we have here, this being the Swainsons, and the 2 earlier were green nape and Forstens lorikeets.
And then Kayla would like to know if you can tell us a little bit about the enrichment that we have out for them.
Kayla has asked about the enrichment that we put out here on exhibit, and that's because that she was painstakingly painted and put all these paper chains together for us while she was at home. Thanks, Kayla.
Don't work from home.
And so we have some painted toilet paper tubes that are painted with tempera paint, which is the same paint that you would give your kindergartner. It's very non-toxic and unharmful to them. They can chew on it without risking their health. And then we also have some really beautiful paper chains that we put together just with construction paper and paste. And they will eventually shred all of that into beautiful little confetti insides. and we will happily come and rake it up and clean it up after them, as long as they have enjoyed it while they were doing it, which typically is the case. These guys are cavity nesters, and so anything that we can do to encourage that cavity nesting behavior, the chewing and tearing apart of things, is all very beneficial to their mental health and their social health. We also give them cardboard boxes and things of that sort so they can pretend like they have a house, which they enjoy doing. We're having lots of fun. These guys love hanging out on the ground and seeing what they can get into. This trash can is turned over, so they want to know if they can get into the trash can, if it's a way to like hide out in there. And they will set up little territories in the exhibit as well. So we'll have 2 birds that hang out by the back door and 2 birds that hang out by the front door. And then we have we have some manner of West Side Story battles go on in here on occasion. They're usually all in good fun, but we like, they like for everybody to know that this is my end of the exhibit and this is my house, not your house. Oh. Such goofballs. And then we'll look up, and all of a sudden the whole flock will be flying back and forth across the exhibit with one another. They definitely make good fun. Okay, here's a good example. We have, let's see, a green nape, a Forstens, and a Swainson's all in line right here. Well, now they're out of line, but Forstens, green nape, Swainson's. And these 2 are a little bit bigger than that one, but not by much. Look at them all lined up on the post for you.
So since it's officially been announced, I have had a few people ask, but we do have a brand new experience that just was announced today that's going to be opening soon. Can you just tell us what that's called?
So it's going to be the drive-through zoo, and it'll be an experience available to our guests, both members and non-members, and you will be able to uniquely, for the first time in our zoo's history, be able to drive your own personal vehicle at very responsible speeds, 4 miles an hour, same speed as a sloth, I think that's what it is. And you will be able to drive through the main pathways of the zoo, and you will be able to drive by our lion and tiger exhibit, many of our bird exhibits in the zoo. You will also have the ability to stop and possibly purchase concessions. We will have a couple of bathrooms open for the public to make sure that everybody is happy and healthy while they're here. And we're really excited to see everybody come out again. We have missed all of our long-term guests and short-term guests. We have missed everybody coming out to the zoo.
So besides that new experience, is there anything that our viewers can do to help these Lorys or any of our other animals here at the zoo?
Absolutely. We have a donate page on our Facebook page and on our website. Anything that you can do, either sharing those links or donating yourself, or doing things like helping support us buy food for these cuties right here. Any help that you can get. We have a large overhead with the amount of animals that we have in the zoo, and we really need your help to make sure that we can stay open and keep you guys entertained for years to come after we do get back open. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming to join me in Lory Landing today. It's been a great experience, and I hope that you enjoyed watching all these clowns with me. I know that they enjoyed having me in here and playing with them while I got to be on camera with you guys.